This video has been made in partnership with Whitewall, the print lab I've been using for years to print all my work. Okay, so I have something that I've been preparing for a very long time here. Good morning. And I want to open it with you. But quick question, have you ever found yourself a little jaded with your photography? The way you take your photos and the way you look at them, have you ever been a little bored? Or does it happen just to me? Sometimes I find myself in a creative rut. And all I wish to do, honestly, is to be shaken up in order to rekindle the creative flame in me. To do this, I recently completed a personal project that forced me to photograph differently. I made a photo book, and it was a real creative joy to do. Honestly, the approach of doing this was radically different, whether it was on the field or at home, and I would like to share with you how you can photograph, select photos, and create your own book that you will be proud of. Now, make sure you watch until the end in order to avoid big mistakes. You'll see in a second what happened. Wow, I absolutely love the result. All right, last year I had the idea to create a book in tribute to the women in my life. My mother, my wife, and my daughter. They are a constant support in my life, and photography is a way for me to express my gratitude in a non-verbal way. I wanted something that requires a lot more thoughts and was using the artistic side of my photography. Right, I did not want just a simple memory album with random photos. For that, I had to shoot something specific, right? Just like I would do it for a client. And this is a creative exercise that has strengthened my enthusiasm and allowed me to approach photography with a new eye, something that I may not do naturally and normally. That's why I want to share it with you, because I think it may be helpful. So today I want to invite you to try to. I will guide you through it. I'm going to share with you the creative process, my advice, my mistakes. Yeah, I told you I made some mistakes. And honestly, I think it's going to be great for you before getting started. Before wasting any money or any time, please watch this. We're going to break this down in 3 parts. First, how to define your book project. Second, how to shoot for a book. And third, how to make it happen, how to create it. So first, how to define a project. There are a few things you need to consider. What is the goal of the book? For me, it was to create a token of my appreciation for the women in my life. They can keep it as a souvenir, they can use it at home. That's kind of what you want to be thinking about. How will people use it also? Then, second question, what is the theme of the book? Here, it can be widely ranging. For you, it may be the human world, the animal world, the contrast between the two, your neighborhood at sunrise when everybody's sleeping. The door is open for you to completely go crazy. For me, it was the women in my life, my mom, my wife, and my daughter on a trip to Japan. Third question now, how do you create the content? Are you going to shoot specifically for the book, or are you going to look through your old images? I'll share my mistakes on the field in a few minutes, or things to think about, because there's a lot that changes between taking photos for a book or taking photos for social media or word art. Now, fourth question, what will be the format of the book? Is it going to be a large book, A4, A2, A1? What format do you want? Is it going to be vertical or horizontal? I think that's a very important consideration because it will influence how you take the photos, right? I decided to go with a horizontal format because I really love having a double spread that is very wide when I look at the images. To me, it adds a lot, especially for certain images where I want to go ultra wide, right? Now, last question, will you put it up for sale or not? It's always important to keep in mind because it will influence the choice of the photos, the support and the project, and who you're gonna contract to work with. Personally, I'm not planning on selling this one. This one is just for the love and for my family. All right, take some notes. I hope this is helpful so far. Those are important questions you need to ask yourself. If you don't know me, by the way, my name is Pierre Lambert. I'm a travel photographer and the creator of the 30 Days to Great Photos program, a step-by-step method to develop your photographer's eyes and skills no matter what kind of gear you're using. There's a link in the description with more information to join the next session. You can check it out, but I also share free photo tutorials and adventures here on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe to the next one. And if you find this helpful, if you're learning something, leave it a big thumbs up and let me know in the comments if you've ever created a book or not. I'm kind of curious to hear. And now that you have the questions to define your project and you know who I am, how do you take useful photos for the projects? Impactful photos. So that brings us to part 2, how to photograph for a book. For me, there are a few changes I had to make. The first one is understand subject and context. What do I mean by subject and context? It means shifting from a position of just focusing on the subject, but also integrating the context so that my reader knows a little bit more about where I am. For me, it's a crucial step in order to succeed at the storytelling part. Second, set your mindset properly. For me, it was to move to a documentary approach, just like when I used to do weddings. Depending on the theme, you will either have to go in the documentary or in the staging mode, right? But in my approach, I was actually trying to be stealth, like a fly on the wall, and document what was happening. And then number 3 on the field, you want to shoot for the format. And for that, I had to create a few epic photos that could serve as a cover of the book. And this is very important to keep in mind. So when you're on the field, you're gonna think about a bunch of photos possible, right? And some of them you'll have to nail. Why? Because your book cover has to be impactful. It has to mean something and it has to go along with your theme. And it may require a lot more effort to get that cover photo rather than of other photos. So make sure when you're reviewing your photos, when you're on the field, that you don't forget to get that cover photo, whether it's for the back or the front, depending how you're gonna place it. And even for the larger spreads, if you're going double spreads like I did, like for example, photos like these, I actually had to think about it on the field and make sure I could use them. Now, sometimes you're lucky and you take photos that you like and they fit perfectly, but sometimes you have to make it extra intentionally. Now, number 4, what you have to consider is to shoot within the same tones. What do I mean? Is try to stay as consistent as possible in your style and tones, or try to create subcategories, because when you're reading a book, the last thing you want is to jump from one bright image on the left to a dark image on the right to the next one is a pinkish yellow sunset photo to the next one which is over cloudy. I think the more seamless your transitions can be within a book, the better, right? It's just like you're reading a book with words. If the author took you from this action happening to the next one without any link in between, it would feel awkward. And it is the same for you as a photographer. You're a visual storyteller, so try to say something in a way that feels smooth. I personally broke it down in different categories, which was morning light, full daytime, and evening. And you'll see in the selection and the process I created the book how exactly that played out. Number 5, one of the key elements is details. Details. Okay, look close and get those details, those textures. Those details will allow to bring your reader into the world that you are photographing. Okay, let me show you a quick example. Whether it is the texture of a tree, the tree bark, or lateral coming out of a pot, all these photos will give the person the feeling of better understanding the place and being there. So give them a feeling, not just something to understand. So I tried to focus on it, and despite focusing on it, I ended up not having enough photos of details. So I felt a little bit stuck sometimes. So honestly, trust me, just shoot 10 times more details than you think you need. It will always be helpful. Number 6, mix your shots, okay? Go wide, medium, narrow, just as if you're shooting a wedding. I used to do that, shoot wide, narrow, medium. It allows to have that diversity, put things in context, and you see that happening a lot during movies where you may see just the spoon in a coffee cup turning and then it zooms out, or you see the guy in the coffee and maybe you see the whole city and the whole country, or it's simply the coffee cup, the guy sitting, and then the coffee itself. So narrow, medium, wide. Try to think about that when you're on the field. It really helps create a better story. Number 7 now, take non-obvious photos. That is to say, photos that do not show the subject directly. For example, on this one, instead of focusing on my subject, I focused on the background in order to leave it blurred. The reader will know who it is because of the other photos in the book. So this kind of photos does not always work, honestly. In solo, it may not work, it be completely out of context, but when it's in a series, it is perfect. And last but not least, number 8, do not change your style too much when you're on the field shooting. Okay, try to be as consistent as possible. Don't start to completely change how you're shooting and even the colors and everything right when you're in the middle of your series. Again, you're trying to create something harmonious, so keep that in mind when you're on the field. Honestly, that documentation part on the field, that photographing part is my favorite. I just love being on the field. But now let's talk about creating the book itself, choosing the photos, and how and why I made mistakes. So part 3, how to create your book. The first step is to select photos. I did it after retouching all my photos. Why? Because that way it allows me for them to be consistent. Some photos look great in the book because they have context, but would not look so good in solo. So do not hesitate to choose a little more than necessary in order to have several variations available. You'll see when you start putting them together, it can get tricky. Technically speaking, I'm going to show you in a second. I just went to the Whitewall website. They have an online builder. It's very simple to use. I'll show you my photo choices I made. And at the end, the important things that you need to keep in mind when you create yours. So if you're ready, we're going to move to the laptop right away. I had to make my selection of photos. A few tips when you're making your selection: don't hesitate to go back in time with other photos if you need to, in order to kind of create an ambience. For example, I went several times to Japan, and photos like these I felt were important to keep just in case I was missing something in the book. And you'll see I ended up using some of these just to give better context on Tokyo, because for example on that specific shoot I didn't have the opportunity to shoot the city from the top at night. Here's what I meant: when you shoot and you want to have different ambiances, right? You remember? So this is a tea house. We had the girls were having lunch. I went outside and started taking photos through the window in order to kind of give context. Then I have a photo inside the tea house, and then I have detailed photos of what we were eating. Then I have a few also photos of the surroundings with the temple and the nature, and all these together will allow me to share something that is more complete and really give you that sense of being there, right there, you know. It's very important to think about these. Now, another example of non-obvious photos is getting just details like this, or shooting through objects so that you have a little bit of context, you're a little bit in background. And for example, I focused here, like I mentioned earlier, and these photos will go well together because they're on the same theme, same color theme, and this is always something you want to keep in mind, right? So I made my whole selection with the whole trip. We have some epic photos. For example, this one I found is really impactful. This one is impactful, and you'll see how I used it. And some photos at night also that I thought were giving some really cool context. So for example, even my mom here in Tokyo, I found is really, really cool. Now, how do I use them? Well, I'm just gonna go to the Whitewall site, and here I'm going to press create now, online design. For the one I decided, I went for exhibition A4 landscape. Then I decided to choose, actually I chose two types of paper. I chose a lay flat design on one, which I absolutely love because I can see the photo completely across the spread, across the 2 pages without any seam. And I also tried another one, which is, I'll tell you in a second, but this has kind of a seam in the middle. So when you're doing double pages photo, you're missing a little bit of that image, and the colors also are different. So the first one I did was the inkjet silk matte, which is that one, and the one I actually preferred that I did was the photo paper silk matte. The paper is a lot denser, a lot bigger. The outcome is great, and it's lay flat. So this is what we're gonna choose. Hardcover, we're gonna take it silk matte. There's other options, white, and that's it. And we just press create. I uploaded all my photos, and they're all here available for me to use. Now I'm gonna choose and show you how I chose the front cover and the back cover. And you will see that sometimes I have to go against my own rules. Okay, so for the back cover, I chose that photo. It was a pretty obvious one. They're looking back, the train's moving, it's the end of the story. I kind of wish maybe this platform had different color theme, but honestly, it's the back of the book, and I think it works great. Now for the front of the book, I chose that photo that I had shot in vertical, and I then cropped it to be on the front page. It's a high resolution photo, so I'm totally fine in terms of resolution, but this is one example where you can't always do things like you want. So I wanted to shoot it in horizontal. It was a traffic, it's difficult, but I got it in vertical because I wanted all the buildings behind. But after trying a few images I had in mind, even this one, for example, for the cover, I found that this photo was the best one. So now when it came to putting photos together, as you can see, what's interesting is that like I mentioned, those photos can work together, right? We have outside, inside, the dishes, and then we have the next one is going to be the context outside. And before that, I had the double spread with the Shinkansen saying that we're going from Tokyo into Kyoto, right? And that was a transition. It's literally a page of transition for me. Same going at night. I had the whole theme of going at night with a double spread, and that photo that I kind of find epic in the middle of Tokyo. Top down shot, again, ambience, walking through small streets. Thank you, Mom. It was her first time in Japan. I'm so glad she came with me. And I took that photo from 2019 that actually fit really well. It's in the same street, different time, but to give context, a little more context, because I was missing on that specific shoot some photos and I felt like I could add more. And here we go. Now you can just order it and then you receive it. Honestly, I'm super happy with the quality. I just prefer this one with the seamless rather than having the seam in the middle. I think, especially for something artful, it makes it look a lot better. So here's how I approached this project. I can't wait to gift it to my mom, and I'll keep a version also for my wife. Remember, the more precise your project, the easier it will be for you to create it. Now, don't forget, if you want to grab my free settings cheat sheet, it is in the description. If you want to know how I set my camera, watch this video, and how to get your focus right, even with the specific techniques I use, watch this one. Now, get out there, go shoot, try something different, try something new, try to create a book, and I'll see you in the next one.